Uh, Thank y'all for being here. We got a mighty fine, high uh, echelon of people. You know, we don't have a big number, but we got the best of the best here, and I appreciate that. And I do try to put good things together that should make a difference in our lives when we study it and when we think about it. I will say this: I'm so proud of Cheyenne. She's graduating, and she's really high up in her class, and she's going into medical school. So y'all be praying for her. She's going to be a physician, we hope, and so y'all be praying for her in her efforts. That takes a lot to do that. All right, tonight, let's see here. That thing's cut off. Maybe it's all right. Tonight we're going to be studying angels in the Bible and what angels did in the very beginning of time, what their principal purpose was, and the variation of the kinds of angels that there was in the Bible. I think it's probably one of the most interesting subjects you could ever. I mean, I like to do it with young people, but and y'all are young, don't get me wrong, but I mean, a lot of times, you know, there are things in the Bible that we should investigate occasionally and just look at it. And the angels were a very important part of the Bible. We know that there are angels already in heaven. We know that there's good angels, and we know that there's bad angels. I mean, they're according to the Scripture, you know, the devil and his angels were cast out. They were bad angels there. We know that there are some things about angels that people won't ever know for sure about. But what we do know is that they represent something in the Bible that should be talked about. So we're going to start in the Old Testament. In the very beginning of time, in Genesis chapter 3, in verse number 24, we just have had, in this particular instance, we've had a situation where God has made this great and wonderful garden, the Garden of Eden. And as we learned from Genesis 3:24, there was something about the angels. You want to read, Terry? All right.
He drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden the cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life.
Okay. So those that he placed there was to guard the way to the tree of life in Genesis chapter 3, verse 24. This is the very first reference that we actually have. Now, somebody said, you think the cherubims was actually angels? According to everything I've learned, that was the guarding of the Garden of Eden. And so these were heavenly beings, and we could not, I don't know the difference between a cherubim and an angel when he put them there to guard. And later on, you're going to read about the angels that was in the garden. But this is the first that we have record of in that. And there are a lot of things about the angels that make a difference. Angels were used sometimes to make a very important announcement. So you remember the announcement of the birth of Samson in Judges chapter 13. I'll just go through this real quick, and then we'll start reading in some verses. But in Judges chapter 13, in Numbers 22 through 27, the angel announces the birth of Samson. Then in Judges chapter 13, the angel announced the birth of John the Baptizer. In Luke chapter 1, verses 11 through 20, we have Jesus as the angels announces the birth of Christ. So the angels were used in lots of different ways. Now we're going to find out too that God used the angels to fight. God used the angels to announce. God used the angels to bless. All kind of things that God did with the angels. Now, somebody asked me one time, how many angels are there? I don't know. I don't know anybody that does know. The Bible doesn't tell us a number when it comes down to how many legions of angels. And you know, a legion, incredible number, you know. Yeah. And, you know, when you think about that, and now we're going to be talking about not only the jobs of the angels, but we're going to be talking about some of the things that the angels were capable of. And you know, whenever you think about an angel's capability and the power of the angel, that's unimaginable. If God could have called one angel to the, or Jesus could have called one angel to the rescue, and he could have annihilated all the armies of the world. I went back and studied some of the things that we'll look at tonight, some of the power of the angels. And one angel, you know, would be more powerful than all the armies of the world. Oh, yeah. Whenever you think about what angels did, sometimes angels were sent to rescue people. In Genesis 16 and 7, y'all remember Sarai. She was a little bit of a mean type woman, and Abraham and Sarah, and she had two handmaids, and one of them's name was Hagar. Y'all remember Hagar? Okay, now Hagar, Sarai decided she didn't like her no more. She had a child, and give the child to Abraham, and then in this case, Sarai sent her away, and she had to leave. And so she went off out into the wilderness, and Hagar was by. I always thought that was one of the saddest things when you read in the Bible about Hagar being sent away after Abraham, you know, she brought forth a child. And we know that during this period of time in Genesis 16, verse 7, now I'll call on one of y'all to read that. Bobby, we'll get you in Genesis 16 and 7. Read that for me, please.
Now the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur.
Okay. So the angel, God sent an angel out after Hagar. And he found her, according to the scripture, the angel found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way of Shur. So the angel was used to go out and look for Hagar. Now, I've always thought that to be a real sad story, you know, because Sarah was mean. She really was. I mean, she was old, but she was mean. Genesis 24 and 7, in this passage, God is granting the ability for the angel to go before those that were leaving. In Genesis 24 and verse 7, somebody want to read, let's see on this side, Brent, you want to read 24 and 7? Go ahead and read verse 42.
The Lord God of heaven, which took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, and which spoke unto me, and that swore unto me, saying, Unto thy seed will I give this land. He shall send his angel before thee, and thou shalt take a wife unto my son from thence.
Okay.
And then 40.
Yeah, verse 40.
And he said unto me, The Lord before whom I walk will send his angel with thee, and prosper thy way, and thou shalt take a wife for my son of my kindred and of my father's house.
Okay. Now, you know, the angels were used in so many different ways, and this is one of the ways that the angels was used. And, you know, when you think about how many angels there are in the Bible that's mentioned, you know, and I tried to count, and then I tried to look it up, and, you know, you got different variations of what people think with the different translations now. But there were several angels. Now, somebody said, did angels actually have, was there special angels? Was there some had higher authority than others? I don't know. But the Bible sort of indicates that there were certain angels that was used numerous times. And I'll show you that in a little bit. But, you know, when you think about angels in the Bible, that's a real subject to look at. Whenever the children of Israel was to leave, and they were going, you know, we know the rescue, we know how that they were being treated, and now God's decided they are going to be His chosen people, and they're going to leave, and they're going to make their journey, and they're going to go into the land of promise and all that. Well, in Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and verse 23 in there, you find a unique thought about them and their travels. You know, did they have to have an army? There was all kind of enemies of God's people, and all kind of people that really and truly could have caused some great harm to the people. But The angels played a big, important part of their mission and their journey. In Exodus 23, verse 20 and verse 23. Let's see. Gary Bragg, can you read that?
Exodus 23 and 20.
Yeah, and then verse 23.
Behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way, and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared.
Verse
For
23.
an angel shall go before thee, and bring thee in unto the Amorites, and the Hittites, and Perizzites, and the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off.
Okay. You got it right. In this passage here, you find the angel leading God's people. And also, you find the angel, given specific directions, specific things that they had to do. And, somebody said one time, to me, they said, have you ever thought about how much God used the angels in what he did? God could have spoke all these things or just made these things happen, but he used those angels. Now the reason I'm doing this tonight, the angels are vitally important because of the fact that, you read in the Bible about little children. I had to prove that one time about who's already in heaven, and who's not. Little children, their faces do behold the face of God. And it says they're angels in heaven that behold the face of God. So, there are lots of things about the angels that really intrigue me, and I thought tonight we'd look at this. Now, in this case, the angel is leading God's people, and then he's also protecting God's people as they move along. Somebody said, do you think angels do that today? I don't know if y'all have ever, if you ever witnessed the birth of a child, you see something that has to be godly. And then you see things happen sometimes that really is unexplainable. Now, people said, well, the days of miracles have ceased. And I agree 100%. The days of miracles from the standpoint of what you read in the Bible about some of the things that they did has ceased. But have you ever been around something that happened and it's just unexplainable? Anybody ever had that happen, Well, sometimes, I'm not advocating this, but I'm just saying angels did so many things in the Bible that it's something to think about, God doesn't do things the way he did in the very beginning. We're not going to see the angels performing or doing the things that God did with them in the very beginning, but there are things that, there has to be a God and there has to be power in that for some of the things that goes on in our society. Now, let's look at Numbers 20 and 16. Numbers 20 and 16. Let's see, Pam.
And when we cried unto the Lord, he heard our voice and sent an angel, and hath brought us forth out of Egypt. And behold, we are in Kadesh, a city in the uttermost of thy borders.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine how many times that they had, the children of Israel had to cry out to God, and God had to rescue and send the angels to help, And, God had enough power, he could have done that basically on his own. But my point is, he has those servants, those angels that served him. And so, many times whenever they cried out, God sent an angel. And the angel was there.
Then as he lay and slept under a broom tree, suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, Arise and eat. Then he looked, and there by his head was a cake baked on coals and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. And the angel of the Lord came back the second time and touched him and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you. So he arose and ate it and drank. And he went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights, as far as Horeb, the mountain of God.
Okay. Now, I thought that to be pretty unique. There's Elijah. He says, I'm the only one left. Everybody's dead. And he's over there asleep. He's gone and found himself out in the wilderness. He's run away, and he's asleep under the tree, and the angel comes. And the angel begins to talk to him, and the angel begins to serve it. And the angel brings, according to the scripture there, the angel brought food and a cruse of water. And he began to eat, and he began to gain his strength back. And so the angel then began to guide him, and he went on his way, went on his journey there. And he went in the strength of that meat and drink that he ate and drank for 40 days, 40 nights. You know, and that to me is a pretty unique thing about an angel. You know, old Elijah, you know, he would have, he's kind of like he had sold up and went out there and went to sleep under the tree and thought he was the only one left, but he wasn't. Now, here's another one. Sometimes the angels are referred in the Bible as his angel. Now, whether or not God had, I guess he did have special angels, there's no doubt about that. Whether or not he used one in particular all the time to do certain things, I don't know about that. I don't know of anybody else that does. But in the comprehensive study, or a little bit of the study that I've done with my old feeble mind, I found something that refers to, God refers to the angel as my angel or his angel. You know, so let's look at Daniel 6, verse 22. Daniel 6, verse 22. I found this pretty interesting to study, y'all. Daniel chapter 6, verse 22. Elaine, you want to read that? Nicole, I'm sorry. I had my head, I had Elaine on my mind. I looked over and she wasn't there.
My God hath sent his angel and hath shut the lion's mouth, that they have not hurt me, for as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O King, have I done no hurt.
So what do we have here? We have an angel that lends protection, and another way that the angels served. And he says, you know, they shut the lion's mouth, that they have not hurt me. And, you know, we know that when they were thrown into the lion's den, you know, that was a situation where no doubt had the angel not been there, somebody wouldn't have made it. So the angel was used in that capacity. He's used as someone to guide, someone to serve, someone to protect. You know, so we're learning a lot of things about what the angels were all about. Now, don't be afraid to say something or ask a question. But Luke 16, let's get into the New Testament a little bit. They say, well, most of the angels was talked about in the Old Testament, but let me tell you something. When you go and start studying the New Testament, you'll find the angels are talked about a great deal in the New Testament as well. So we'll look at several things in the New Testament there, and we'll see something about the angels. Luke 16, verse 22. Let's see. Judy, you don't read that?
And it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried.
Think about this. The beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. So used in this capacity to serve. And, you know, there's a lot to think about, you know. God used the angels quite frequently, and even in the New Testament during the time of the beginning of the church and the things that were going on during that period of time. God used the angels quite frequently. You know, Brother Charles and I had talked about it before. He did a study on angels one time. I had the privilege of being in the class when he was at Oxford long years ago. And he mentioned the fact, you know, of just exactly what you just said. He says, something to think about. He said, you know, I can't, you know, we don't have an exclusive proof of that. But, you know, when a Christian dies, you know, God still uses angels today. But how does he use them? There's all kind of ways he used them then. Has he quit? I mean, I don't think so. I think he still uses the angels today. That's one reason I wanted to study this. I mean, wanted to talk about this tonight because, you know, a lot of times people, they they're kind of misguided about what God can and can't do. You know, people says, well, there ain't no use to pray. But, you know, if God's still God, and He is, and He's still there, and He still has the ability to do whatever. Could an angel be there and we not see the angel? You know, well, certainly. You know, God can do anything He wants to do. And the angel, apparently, from every indication, the angels, just like Alan just brought to our attention a while ago, be careful not to entertain strangers, because you may be entertaining an angel, you know, unaware, you know. So we never know. It's just very unique in everything you read about the angels in the Bible. John 1, verse 51. This is a pretty unique one right here. Kathy, you get that for me. John 1, verse 51.
Okay, and he saith unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter ye shall see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man.
This is during the time that Christ was crucified and died, and was on the earth and all that. And he talks about the angels. He says, you're going to see heaven open. You're going to see the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. Where were they ascending and descending from, y'all? Heaven. That's where the angels abide. You know, when you read in the book of Revelations, and I won't have time to get all of that because I still got a lot more to do here, but when you read in the book of Revelations about the great war, when God and His angels fought against the devil and his angels, those were reprobate angels, those were rebellious angels, and God, according to the Scripture now, God cast them out. He cast the devil and his angels, those that were there, that were evil angels, they were bad angels. He cast them out into what we know of as hell. And so, you know, in that case, you know, there was angels in heaven that were apparently rebellious, you know. And so, you know, that's something to consider too when you study the subject of angels. They were cast out. All the bad ones were cast out with the devil himself, cast out into hell. The Bible says he was cast out into the earth. And if you read that passage, you know, that's a serious matter to think about. He was cast out. If he was cast out into the earth, what about all these angels that was cast out with him? You know, something to think about. Kind of like what Alan just brought to our attention a while ago. There's scriptures there that kind of makes you think, you know. You know, there are a lot of these, I've listened to a lot of the boys that are supposedly educated, and they teach different things in different preaching schools, y'all, about certain things. But that's one of the things that I've heard from some of the youngsters that come out, and the fact that just what you said, you know, will the earth become hell? You know, but there was a hell before the earth, and there'll be a hell after the earth. So will this become a part of it? I don't know. You know, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of things that people say, but, you know, no, it's going to be. But the devil and his angels were cast out in the very beginning. And that's something to think about. Is there a restriction on the angels? In Acts chapter 5, verse 19 in the New Testament. Acts chapter 5, verse 19. Sandy, you want to read that? Sandra, and then I'll get Sandy next. I got two Sandys.
But the angel of the Lord by night opened the prison doors and brought them forth and said,
Verse 20.
Go, stand and speak in the temple to the people all the words of this life.
So the angels were not restricted, you know. In this case, the angel of the Lord opened the prison doors, brought them forth and said, now, go and stand and speak in the temple. So in this case, the angels were used to open the doors of the prison. So when you think about, I put down in my notes there, angels were not restricted. Those doors were locked, but the angels could open them. You know, there wasn't a problem with it. So they weren't restricted from the standpoint what could they do? Most anything that God allowed them to do, they could do. And in this case, they opened the doors of the prison. Let's look at, I'm going to skip a couple of them here because we won't get time for all of it, but Hebrews 1 and 7. Sandy Goodwin, Hebrews 1 and 7. And verse 14 too, Sandy.
And the angels, and all the angels, he said, who maketh his angels spirits and his ministers a flame of fire. And was it 14?
Yeah.
And they, not all ministering spirits, sent forth the minister of them who shall be heirs of salvation.
Here it's referred to them as ministering spirits. Ministering spirits. Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for them who shall be heirs of salvation? Somebody said, I don't know any preachers that are angels. I don't either. But, you know, the angels here in this capacity, they were ministering spirits. And they were sent to do a certain job. He said he makes his angel spirits and his ministers a flame of fire. So they had a job to do. They did the job. In certain cases, it was ministering. They were ministers for them who shall be heirs of salvation. Now, Alan's already brought this one to our attention, but Cheyenne, you can read it again if you want to in Hebrews 13 and 2. Read that one for us, and we'll talk about it again.
Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares.
Okay. What do you suppose it means when he says, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware? You know, when you're unaware of something, you really don't know it, do you? You know. And that's the reason that sometimes we have to be careful how we treat people and what we say and what we do and how we act in our public behavior. You know, you never know. He said, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. And that's New Testament. So, you know, somebody said, well, it still doesn't prove they're amongst us. I beg to differ a little bit. You know, I still believe that God looks out for a lot of things in this old world. And I think he has help to look out for all these things. He don't need it, but I think God has a way of looking out for a lot of things. You know, we was looking at that one previously, but when he said, who makes his angels spirits and his ministers a flame of fire. And then he says that they're ministering spirits sent forth to minister. So, you know, there is some evidence there that maybe God sheds his graces on certain ones to do certain things. Now, all right, when you think about Sodom and Gomorrah and the angels that destroyed it, you know, they were able to destroy those cities to the point where they can't even be found where they was. So that tells you a little bit about the power of the angels. In 2 Samuel 24 and 16, you got a situation here where you really and truly look at something. Second Samuel 24 and 16. All right, Miss Galloway, you want to read that for us? 16 and 17. 2 Samuel 24.
And when the angel stretched out his hand upon Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord repented him of the evil, and said to the angel that destroyed the people, it is enough, stay now thine hand. And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing place of
Arnon Jebusite.
Yeah. And David spake unto the Lord when he saw the angel that smote the people, and said, Lo, I have sinned, and I have done wickedly. But these sheep, what have they done? Let thine hand, I pray thee, be against me and against my father's house.
Okay. My point in this one is that God restrained the angel. Had it not been for God restraining this angel, what was he capable of? I mean, how powerful was this angel? The Bible said he stretched forth his hand upon Jerusalem to destroy it. So, I mean, he didn't have to do anything but destroy the city of Jerusalem with the stretching out of his hand. But God restrained him, and then the Bible goes on to say, David spake unto the Lord when he saw the angel that smote the people. He had already killed a lot of the people, and he was going to destroy the entire city, the entire place, Jerusalem. And so he was restrained by God. So, you know, somebody said, well, what does that prove? It proves that God has the strength to restrain the angels, no doubt. He has control of the angels, but the angel's power is so massive that with the stretching out of his hand, he destroyed the people. With the stretching out of his hand, he could have destroyed the entire country. You know, and it's hard to fathom that. That's exactly right. You know, when you read that passage where it says, he said, and the Lord, when he saw the angel that smote the people, said, Lo, I have sinned, and I have done wickedly. And when David said, I've sinned and I've done wickedly, when he saw what had happened, it caused him to think in terms of, hey, I don't want this, you know, because God said this is enough. You know, you got to kill all the people now. Don't destroy the city. When you think about the power of the angels, and that's what I wanted to do tonight, just look at some of these things. There were some numbers given in 2 Kings. 2 Kings 19, verse 35. 2 Kings 19, verse 35. Linda, you want to get that for me? 2 Kings 19, verse 35.
And it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000, and when they arose early in the morning, behold, there were all dead corpses.
This is one angel. And according to my calculations, that's 18,500 people that were smitten. When you think about it, the angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. If I got that right, that's 18,500 people. Well, hold on. I wrote it down right. Y'all can look at it. I just didn't see it right. It's 185,000. That's right. 185,000. I'm sorry, y'all. Now, I wrote it down right. Y'all can look at my Bible and see. But I just couldn't. When I looked down there, it said 18,500. That one zero on the end's all in the middle there, Bruce. That's a good way to put it in. Okay. 18,000, 185,000. When you think about the ability of the angel, that's the point that I brought this verse forward. I mean, when the angel of the Lord went out in one angel smiting 185,000 people, that's an amazing thing. Yeah, he doesn't kill them all. That's right. And that's an amazing thing. In Psalms 35:5, Betty, let's get you because we ain't had you read. Psalms 35:5, and this will be 5 and 6. You know, when you think about the angel of the Lord, he says, chasing them, and their way be dark and slippery, and the angel of the Lord persecute them. I'd hate to know I had an angel of the Lord after me. You know, that's and I've often said, you know, I'm not a fearful person in lots of ways about nothing earthly much. Never been real fearful, but the angels, I would have to be. When you think about what an angel of the Lord could do, you know. It's an amazing thing. Now, is there evil angels? Well, let's answer that question. Is there evil angels? Now, let's see. I've already got around, I think, to most of them. Let's look at Psalms 78 and verse 49. Let's see, who hasn't read? Bruce. Bruce hadn't read, and Bruce, you read 78:49. Then we'll get another one.
Cast upon them the fierceness of his anger, wrath, and indignation, trouble, by sending evil angels among them.
Well, you know, there's a word used there that indicates the fierceness of his anger, wrath, indignations, and trouble by sending evil angels among them. I don't know why it was determined or why it was put there that way, but we know that when we put the word evil in front of the angels, they didn't mean good, did they? They meant they were going to do something really tough. That's something to think about. All right, Lamar, let's get you to read Acts 12:23, and then I'm going to try to get two outside to read, and we'll be through. Acts 12, verse 23. This is concerning old Herod. This is old Herod that he's talking about. And the Bible says the angel of the Lord smote him, and he's eating of worms. That's not a good picture, is it?
Notice the order of that. He was eating of the worm, then he died.
I hadn't thought about that. He was eating the worms and gave up the ghost.
That's the real
Ooh, that'd be a hard matter, wouldn't it?
He'll be conscious while that's going on.
All right, turn to Acts 27:23. And then I've used up our time. Yeah, Acts 27, verse 23. This will be 23 and 24 all together. Then I got one more I'll read.
For there stood by me this night an angel of the God to whom I belong, and whom I serve, saying, Do not be afraid, Paul. You must be brought before Caesar, and indeed God has granted you all those who sail with you.
So the old angel was there, present, and gave this information to him. And he tells us that the angel of the Lord stood by him. And there's one more. Psalms 103, verse 20. Psalms 103, verse 20. Who hadn't read? Did everybody get to read tonight? Ain't nobody got their hand up. All right. This is what it says. Bless the Lord, ye his angels that excel in strength, that do his commandments, that hearken unto the voice of his word. He said, Bless ye the Lord, all ye his host, ye ministers of his, and do his pleasure. Angels obey God. Bless the Lord, ye his angels that excel in strength. So, when you think about the angels of God, think about all the things that we talked about tonight. They say, well, you know, I had never really thought. When you think about the power of the angels, that's something to think about. When you think about the use of the angels in the Bible, that's something to think about. When you think about the other things that the angels were involved in and what they were capable of and what God directed them to do, one thing we can say at the end of the way here, God was still in control. He's always been in control, and he still is, of the angels. But one angel would have the power to destroy all the armies of the world. You know, when you think about old Satan, he was an angel. And you know, a lot of people never point in that direction. But you know, the devil himself was actually an angel in heaven at one time, and was cast out because of rebellion against God, and cast out with others that were with him. And so it's something to think about. In Matthew 4:6, let me read this before we quit because our time's up. But in Matthew 4:6, this is where the devil is tempting Jesus, and he's there with him. And he says, If thou be the Son of God, you cast yourself down. He said, for it's written. This is what the devil said. He said, it is written. He knows what's written. He was once there. He knows all about it. He says, it is written. He shall give his angels charge concerning you. This is talking about Jesus now. And in their hands they shall bear thee up at any time that you would dash thy foot against a stone. And then the devil left him. And behold, the angels came. Now remember this. The angels came and they ministered unto Christ. Now, you know, that to me is a pretty unique end to talking about the angels. You know, they do what God directs them to do. Any thoughts or comments before we ring the bell? Well, I certainly appreciate y'all for coming and for being here.